Today I have a very special guest with me. I have Kevin Dhir, a good friend, an old friend. Today we're going to be talking not about a lot of stuff that I've talked about before, League of Legends or Pokemon. Today we're talking about something completely new, Super Smash Brothers and a recent controversy that's gone around with the hashtag Free Melee. We're going to go through all of this, but first, let me get a short introduction from you, Kevin. What do you do? Who are you?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, thanks for having me on your show, Kenny. Really appreciate it. My name's Kevin Dhir. I'm the founder of Galint Gaming. We're an esports event operations consulting services organization. Recently started, haven't really done too much just yet, but Galint Gaming is more so the culmination of everything I've done in the past in Smash Bros. So prior to my time with Galint, I was part of the UBC Esports Association. I started the Super Smash Brothers department within UBC Esports and grew it to where it stands today. So I've run major tournaments as big as 900 to 1,000 people. That's the Battle of BC series. I help out with the Play with Heart series, and I've just put a lot into the Smash community over the past 5 or 6 years, and I'm just continuing to do so. It's my passion.
For sure. That's really why I wanted to talk to you, because you've really been here since the beginning, it feels like.
Yeah. I've been around for a while, and I've gotten to see it go from where it was back then to where it is now, and it's really, really cool to see. And we're at another point in like the life cycle of the Smash community where we're about to pop off some more. So
this game's existed for 20 years, man. That's crazy. A competitive scene that's existed for 20 years. So for such an old game, and for competitive Smash in general, I feel like, again, because of reasons we'll get into in the future, it hasn't been as big as I at least personally believe it should be, right? And so how did you first get into the scene? How did you first, so how did you first get into the scene, and why Melee in particular? Why not Ultimate? Why not 4? Why Melee?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually got into Smash Bros. So my whole life, I've played Smash Bros. Very casually. I have an older brother, and our go-to console at home, we were Nintendo fans our entire lives.
Sure.
We always have played Smash Bros. Like our whole lives. Like as early as I can remember in my life, I was playing Smash Bros. 64. We would go to the video game store and rent Smash Bros. 64 and play it with my cousins, my brother, with our friends. And then, and then I guess the time it first became competitive for me, I played League of Legends in high school. I started playing League in grade 8. So grade 8 to 10, I was super into League of Legends. I ran tournaments for that, and I really got into esports through League of Legends. And on a day where I was really tired of playing League, I was probably losing a ton, I was super salty. I was a pretty toxic high schooler in League, to be totally honest with you.
Just like everybody else, for sure.
Pretty much, right? But I found myself on Twitch, and I saw that EVO was going on, and EVO Top 8 was happening. EVO 2014 Top 8 for Melee was actually being live broadcast. So I got to watching that. I watched like Hungrybox vs. Mango, and I ended up watching the whole Top 8 that night. I was like, this is really cool. Because as a kid, to be totally honest, like I played Smash 64. I played a bit of Melee. Like I played with my brother. Melee was really hard for me as a kid. And then Brawl came out in 08, and I got really into Brawl. So Brawl is prior to like getting into Melee, Brawl was my most played Smash game. Like I barely played Melee relative. Like I couldn't even wave dash, I remember. So I couldn't even wave dash. But then after watching EVO that day, I mean, I pulled out our GameCube, which I knew where it was, and I found our CRT, and I started playing some Melee casually with my brother, and it just really exploded from there for me. I started competing with my brother, and then I wanted to play with people at school, so I started playing Melee at school, and I already had a club, an esports club at school that I was running. So I just brought in my GameCube and CRT one day, found that there were a ton of other people who would be down, and it kind of really all just went from there.
It really usually starts from there, right? A bunch of group of friends that are just playing Melee casually and having a ton of fun with it.
It really is the case, man.
So how'd you transition from, hosting your small high school tournaments and hanging out casually with your friends to hosting something like Battle of BC a few years later, and now, Galint, which is, 500 entrants. You've announced some cool names. None's gonna be there, I think, right? You've announced None. So how'd you get from there to TOing some really big tournaments?
I think it's a combination of I did do the baby steps along the way, like when I look back at my tournament growth. But I mean, honestly, it was just in the Melee scene and in the Smash Bros scene, I just feel like things are pretty limitless. There's no one, because I guess it's like a double-edged sword of not having regulation and stuff. Like, anybody can do anything, right? Like Genesis, huge ass tournament. My headphones just told me my battery's low, so I'm gonna plug in my headphones and I'll continue talking.
Yeah. No
I think there was just never really a limit, and I could just achieve what I wanted to achieve at any time. Sorry, just give me two seconds here while I plug these headphones in. Sorry,
like I'm gonna edit this out anyway. Don't worry, dude. It's like edit a YouTube video, so I could just cut it.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So how I went from running those tournaments I was running as a high schooler, as a kid, to like where I am now with running what I run with Galint, I think really with Smash there was never any limits. Our community is entirely Twitter based, and that actually really helped me a lot, because for Battle of BC1 and like a lot of my tournaments even prior to that, I was able to just reach out to pros and have them attend our events. UBC Cup 2016, like SStat just like flew out randomly because I had messaged them on Twitter. I'm like, hey man, we're running a tournament. I think I did have like, in high school I did a lot of like try hard things. Like I did Model UN, I did student council. So I already had a lot of experience doing things like cold call reach out and talking to people like formally in a degree. The Smash community is very far from formal. And didn't have any of that kind of, mannerisms. Like right now, if you wanted to talk to Bjergsen, like you probably couldn't talk to Bjergsen, right? I mean, back then it was different. Like even then, like League of Legends, like I actually like knew Bjergsen by like a degree.
Yeah.
But for Smash, like everybody was on the same playing field, really. So I just remember like doing all these cold call reach outs when I'm like 17 years old, and people like. The people on the receiving end were not even used to like these kind of reach outs or having these kind of conversations, right? Yeah. I remember, I mean, I guess Battle BC is the one I remember the most of these conversations from. Battle BC 1. Like, I reached out to Homemade Waffles, Brandon. Like, he's he's the guy in the Wombo Combo, the commentator in the Wombo Combo.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, and I read back our Twitter conversation, that first conversation back in 2015 the other day, and it was just such a different landscape. Like, it was just me, like, hitting him up, saying, like, hey, man, like, do you want to come to our tournament, and we'll, like, help fly you out and stuff. And he was kind of just, like, sussed out. He was like, yo, man, like, if this is some, like, esports, like, Smash wasn't esports by any means. There were a lot of corporations coming to Smash doing some shady shit. He just was like, he vetted us out, but it's like, it was really different back then. It's still like pretty similar to that, but the industry has grown. But Smash being grassroots meant anybody could achieve anything. You didn't need to have some crazy big brand associated with yourselves for your tournament to have legitimacy and things like that. Beyond just like that growth that I had from doing that, I do accredit the resources and people that I met through UBC esports as being a really good support net. Because in high school, when I decided to go to UBC, I was already talking to a lot of like people who were a part of UBC esports, particularly Han Tao, Michael Medley. They brought me into the team, and actually at the end of grade 12, I kind of had a pretty tough decision. I either was able to go and be the League of Legends department head, or the Smash Bros department head, right? Like, League needed somebody new. Smash didn't even exist, but they knew that I was involved with both. So I kind of had to make that decision, and I ended up choosing Smash Bros. And I owned it. And
like,
I
mean, dude, UBC Smash has been the biggest department in UBC esports for like the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I actually ran UBC Cup 2015 while I was still in high school because I hadn't graduated yet, but I had to commit to UBC, and the transition to the next directors happens before the end of like the high school year.
Yeah.
So I ran UBC Cup 2015, and I remember I literally like left early that day because I had a scholarship interview, and then I came back afterwards. Like it was just such a crazy day.
Wow.
But yeah, the people at UBC Esports like blindly just supported me and gave me resources in terms of people. Like back then, like there wasn't a Smash department. I didn't have Smash execs or anything, right? It was me and the rest of UBC Esports Association. And I was just like pulling people. Like Justin Simpao was so crucial. Just random people from other departments were so crucial. Like I remember I think like Gigi even like manned our registration desk back at those tournaments. Like just so many random people, and they were all so captivated by like attending a Smash tournament because for them it was also new and exciting, right?
Honestly, if I could give like a bit of anecdote for myself, so I don't know, I just posted this. So for prep for this podcast. So I joined. I really started getting involved in UBC Esports like mid 2019. I would say I wish I got in earlier, blah blah blah, but it is what it is. So that was around the time where you guys had Battle of BC3 for the first time, and I had like that was when I just first started playing Ultimate. Right, I just touched the game. Arnaud was teaching me how to fast fall, also figuring that out. And so they were like, "Hey, we need volunteer help for Battle of BC." I was like, "Sure, whatever, man." So they were like, okay, you can like just go man the VIP desk, just like go, attend to these people if they want whatever, just like help them out, right? And the amount of just like famous Smash players that like walked through me and I just didn't realize who they were. Like I saw Zane, this little kid, just practicing next to me like for 2 hours, and I was probably like the best player in the world. I don't know. There's just like so many opportunities. Smash is such a cool game, and I really understand what you're saying. Like you're really enamored when you go to these tournaments. Like there's a whole experience for a new person that even when you're like new and you don't really understand what's going on, the excitement's really there. There's like an energy around it, and it really gets you hyped. Like I Battle of BC3 was really a really cool tournament, man. Like that was sick.
Yeah, man, Battle of BC3 was an amazing event, and it is crazy to reflect that like we did that, man.
Yeah,
like,
that's crazy.
That high that like it never goes away. That like we did that. Yeah.
Because I feel like it's really weird. Like when you're a kid, I guess when you're in high school and you watch all these esports tournaments, right? That you like you watch online or whatever. Like you were talking about like EVO and stuff like that. And I guess like a few years later, like being able to be involved in stuff like that and actually host something like that for yourself must be a really weird and cool feeling, huh?
For sure, man. I mean, I think I didn't really feel or I didn't really understand it or appreciate it as much. Like that, like I am actually doing something really cool until I started going to out of region tournaments until I traveled to other tournaments, because I would watch some of these big tournaments at home then, right? Yeah. But like it always just felt like still separated to me, like, holy crap, like that is still esports, right? Mm-hmm. What I'm doing isn't that. And then I went to Genesis 3. Like Genesis 3 was my first major. And so I went to that, I believe it was January first year. So like first year and then January after, like, January first year. I went to Genesis 3. I went with some BC guys, and that was my first out of region tournament. And honestly, I was like, when I got there and when I was experiencing, I'm like, I can do this. It's not like they're just doing what they already do, just on a slightly bigger scale, more setups, more streams and stuff. But like, I can achieve this, right? Like, because when you watch a stream from a tournament at home, like with the production value that we have in Smash and everything, like it feels like really cool. Like you're watching. But then when you're in an audience behind the setup of a stream, potentially, like if it's a corner setup or not, the big stage is always the big stage, but like there's a lot of side streams. If you're just around that, you're just like, this isn't really anything different at all. Yeah. So on my flight home from Genesis 3, I planned Battle of BC 1. I'm like, I know I can do this. Like, I want to run our own major. And then that May is when we ran Battle of BC 3, so just a couple months afterwards.
That's so sick.
So Battle of BC 1. Not Battle of BC 3, but Battle of BC 1 on my way home from Genesis 3. And it kind of snowballed. Battle of BC 1 had some really good fortunate luck that like helped us snowball and become bigger. The biggest thing was Leffen gained the BC one. There was a big rivalry between Leffen and SFAT at the time.
Ooh.
And so their grand finals and winners finals was them. So that was really hype, got us a lot of attention. And the other thing was Leffen was banned from the States at the time.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
So Red Bull was doing like a Canada tour because he was allowed into Canada. So he was going to go to like 3 big Canadian tournaments, which were GOMO, EGLX, and Battle of BC. And they made like a documentary about it. And like Battle of BC was his first tournament back.
Ooh,
so
wow.
that's
a lot of exposure. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. I think like I asked you before, but I think we never got to it. Why do you think Melee in particular has like survived for so long? Because there's very few games that have the shelf life of Melee. It's been out for 20 years and it's been competitive for 2 decades, which is insane. So what do you think is the reason why it lasts so long?
I think Melee is endless in terms of its ceiling. I think every couple of years, or even every year at this point, if not less, the meta shifts in some way. Things keep advancing. We're discovering brand new techniques, things that people thought weren't ever feasible for an average player to implement. Like people are doing left and right. Like when you think about that, like the techniques that have become the norm, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff that you see in tools level gameplay is stuff that like the best players in the world 4 or 5 years ago struggled with. Like I play pretty decent at Melee, right? Yeah. And the stuff I do, like consistent shield dropping, I can do every Fox tech that I can think of, like all that stuff. Like Mango couldn't even do this stuff like 3 years ago, potentially, right? Like he didn't even shield drop in his gameplay, and now the average Joe Schmo is doing that stuff, right? So not only is like the gameplay evolving, but like the players are evolving as well. Even though the game isn't being patched or anything, we're discovering stuff, we're implementing stuff like slide offs and shield dropping and optimizing all these things and really working on these techniques. And then the players themselves are changing as well, right? We're getting new faces, we're having new stars emerge, and we're getting to see brand new, unique play styles and that kind of stuff. So Melee, for the entire 20 years of Melee has always been exciting in terms of its competition, right? There have been some dead times, but it has definitely stayed exciting, and even today is still so damn exciting, like watching like the best players and trying to figure out who the best player is. So that's never changed. And then on top of all that, it's still always just so fun to play, right?
It is. Like it really is.
Like the time disappears when you're playing a good Melee session or like having fun playing Melee. Like you can spend an entire day, and I just remember back to the days in high school where I had the time to spend 8 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours just with my friends playing Smash Bros all day. Yeah. Because every game, all the action is condensed in Melee, right? Like it's 3 to 4 minutes for a game. Everything happens in that 3 to 4 minutes,
so
right?
Much happens in 3 to 4 minutes. Actually, that's the thing. Like Melee is crazy because within 5 seconds, there could be 10 different things that a person does that might impress you. He waved dash back, right? Edge canceled that. Like it's crazy, man.
All those micro analysis, is why. But then I think another real good thing about Melee that has helped it stay strong and stay alive is that it's also really easy and approachable for spectators, right? Like, you don't need to understand the executional input difficulty of somebody doing something, or even, like, what exactly they did, but you can see that Falco just fucked up Fox, right? It's pretty clear, right? When somebody is getting trashed, or somebody's winning or losing, and those kind of situations. So it's really cool on a micro level, but also on a macro level, it's really understandable.
I also think it's something to do with like, when even if you don't have an understanding of Smash, when you watch Mango play, like something like he's going fast and he's going hard. Like you can tell just from the energy of watching something. Anyway, so moving on from that, I think as a person, so I really started getting into Smash like 2018, so really late compared to a lot of other people. I got into Smash when Ultimate came out, right? And I think that's true for quite a few people, at least in this time frame. And I think I took, like, my primary game is Dota, and I think I took a lot of the support that Dota gets for granted. And I think, I mainly play MOBA and League, right? And I play Dota and League, and I see what these companies put into the games, right? And to help them grow or whatever. And even for me as a Dota person, when I look at what Riot does for League, I get salty where I'm like, you could be doing so much more with our scene. And I started learning a lot about what Nintendo does with Melee, and that just shocked me. And it's basically just like nothing, right? They don't give you guys anything, and it's been that way for so long. And yet the scene has survived for 20 years. Like, can we, like, you know, I'm giving you time now. Give me your frustrations with Nintendo. If you had a Nintendo executive right in front of you, what would you say? How would you get mad at him?
Oh gosh, that's tough. I actually did have the chance to like think about this stuff and talk about it. I'm actually going to be on a panel that's premiering on Monday as part of the 5 Days of Melee, the tournament organizers panel. So I did have the chance to talk to a couple other TOs about these frustrations and whatnot. At this point in time, given everything that's happened, I don't really want Nintendo, right? Like at this point, what I'd want from Nintendo is, look, you made your stance clear. You're not going to do stuff for us. Stop hurting us. Stop actively making it so that we can't do the stuff that we want to do. Give us the reins to continue to own our community. This isn't... So League of Legends, for example, the League of Legends community is very much owned by Riot. Right? Riot controls them. Riot controls their ecosystem, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not like criticizing. I mean, to an extent, there are some pros and cons that come with it.
Pros and cons, yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's like a grassroots competitor to the LCS, and if there was, they would shut that down. It's like legally not allowed. You need like the rights and everything to do it, right? Nintendo's made it clear they're like not actively walking around giving rights for tournaments and stuff. And at this point, they're actively shutting down tournaments and stuff. So at this point to Nintendo, I would just say, please just let us do our thing. Let us own our own community. Smash Bros. Melee and Smash Bros. Is not yours then. The competitive scene of Smash Bros. Is not yours. You have abused it. And we recognize you've abused it. And you've taken advantage of it. Like, given that you have done that, at the very least, you should have the humility to recognize, like, we fucked up. We're sorry. The thing is, right now, I don't even know if Nintendo changed their tone about everything tomorrow. I don't know if that would change anything about how we feel. Like, I think if Nintendo tomorrow turned back on everything they said and announced a crazy good circuit that, like, met anyone's standard, I still don't know how I'd feel about that. I would feel like, unless that circuit is them just giving a shit ton of money to people like us who are down to, like, run it and, like, the community owns it, I don't know if that's what we need, you know?
I agree. I think that a circuit run by Nintendo would look very different from like anything, like, for example, the Smash World Tour that got announced like a few months ago.
Yeah, man. I mean, look at what they've been doing with Smash Bros. Ultimate's competitive scene, for example. I don't think enough people like make it. I think at this point people can tell like Nintendo, they're not like going to do what we want them to do, because if you've ever seen the open tournaments they run on Battlefy as a part of Smash, like Smash Ultimate's Battlefy based tournaments, like those tournaments are not made for us, man. A lot of them have like items on stage lists and stuff. Like, dude, like you were so close and then you screwed it up, right? Like, if those tournaments had any degree of competitive integrity as well, like they could at least be given like, hey, good job, you guys are doing something, but they're not, right?
Yeah.
They really aren't, and they're just doing it for their own sake of, like, promotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just, like, technically we run tournaments, you know, like, technically, like, and I think, okay, just to give a bit of background on this for people who are listening and don't really know, what's been happening for basically 20 years is that Nintendo has tried at a lot of points to stop the competitive Melee scene from growing. And I think a lot of it has to do with how Nintendo wants to be seen as a company. I actually don't know why they would hold it back, but I think a lot of them is that one of the main reasons is that they don't like their games becoming competitive, I guess, or something like that. And, you know, at several points throughout Melee's history, whether it be the fact that, you know, in 2006, this whole idea of a Smash circuit was going to come out. MLG was going to put money into it until Nintendo chose to stop it and not allow it to continue. And in many other occasions, streaming rights for Evo, they decided to pull right before the tournament right before it happened, and, you know, made it a lot harder for any TO to want to run Smash. So I think the idea is that right now Smash is such a untapped grassroots scene that could have grown so much with the support of Nintendo, but like has just not, but has continued to survive, which is a very beautiful thing. in my opinion. I think the fact that
Kenny and
weeklies and locals and continue. Sorry.
Yeah, not just survive though, mind you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's been this, right? Like in the past 8 months during COVID, Smash Bros. Melee viewership has gone up like significantly, which is just insane. And like we're outdoing Smash Bros. Ultimate and a bunch of other games in terms of viewership, which is just like
actually before we continue, I'll take some of this airtime to give props as to why I started playing Melee during this pandemic, and it's because of Fizzy, right? This man is insane. Has somehow developed rollback netcode for a 20-year-old game that runs on a Dolphin emulator, so we can now play Melee with anybody on Earth with some of the best. Like, I am having an amazing time playing Melee online. And that is honestly one of the reasons that me, as a person who had never touched Melee before, was interested in the game, but mainly was playing Ultimate and stuff like that, and really tried to play the game in the summer because I could play with my friends now. We didn't have to be on LAN, right? Like, Slippi has given us that opportunity and has helped Melee explode because it's just grown so much that you can now play online. Like, you take for granted so much that you can actually play online with great netcode for these fighting games, and that's so important, right?
Yeah, from a nerd perspective, Slippi gave even more to the community than just giving us netcode. Slippi gave us an API into the game. So, like, we can actively integrate any technology we want with the game. And we're going to be seeing some of those things come out. But the fact that every game of Melee can now be generated into a Slippi file that has everything about that game into it, there's so much opportunity with that. And the applications are coming, right? The applications already exist. Some of them, like Clippy, for example, can automatically just go through your game and generate clips. Or you can create button bindings on your controller where if you push a certain button combo, it will clip and make a clip twitch, a Twitch clip of the last 30 seconds automatically just by controller input. And like, other games don't even have this shit. No AAA game has this shit, right?
Yeah.
And here we are making it as a community. Like, the content, the creators in Melee are so talented and have just... I think the Smash Bros. Community understands Smash Bros. And Melee so much more than Nintendo does at this point, even on a code level.
Yeah, I agree. That's crazy, man. The fact that they're able to do that is insane. Like, I can get recordings. I have like things like Uncle Punch have come out, and now like I can like it feels like the practice is like some of the most efficient practice I've ever put into any game. You know what I mean? Like, I can really like there's things that tell you what, like, I can practice L counting really well for hours. I can just practice shield dropping, wave dashing, everything. They'll show you what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong at every certain time. It's just really amazing. And I think another thing that I would like to say, like, this is my prediction for the future. Like, the fact that Slippi has come out, and the fact that I can tune into a Mango stream and watch him play Zane for 3 hours, like just playing friendlies or whatever they're doing, making content. Like, the fact that the #1 in the world and possibly #2 in the world can just play consistently against each other nonstop tells me that like the meta might, like, I think the growth is going to be so huge in skill that now that you have access to all these people that you can play against, right? And I think part of it is like, continue, sorry.
Yeah, man, no, I totally agree with you, because Melee in the past has been a LAN-based game. If Mango wanted to play with Zane, he would have to fly across the country. You were only as good as the people around you, right?
Yep.
Or the people you had the opportunity to play against, right? That is why, like, the best player in your province might not even be able to take, like, 2 stocks off of the best player in, like, the next province, right? Or the next state or whatever, right? But now that doesn't even exist, right? Now people can grind this game as hard as they want to. And the thing is, you can find consistent, good gameplay 24/7 now. 4 a.m., you're chilling, and you can hop on Slippi and get a match with good ping in less than like 2 minutes at like 4 a.m.
And those unranked people will destroy at least me. Every other time I log on to unranked, it's always like I just get my ass beat. Okay, so Melee has grown, and you know, Melee is pretty damn amazing, to be honest. I have had such a fun time playing this game, but here's my question for you. If you had your you're a TO, you've had experience in this field for a long time, you've done a lot for the community, especially in BC. If you had unlimited resources and you had a span of 5 years to create your dream Smash circuit, give me in detail like how you would go about doing that, just like off the top of your head.
Gotcha.
As detailed as possible.
Gotcha. So like even though we do have online play for this game, online play in any game is still restricted in that like you can't just like freely play someone in Europe or Asia or whatnot. Like you probably could, but still gonna be laggy, and that's at no fault of anyone. It's just like physically
the way geography works.
Yeah, the way the world works, right? I think in the future, what I would see is consistent big in-person tournaments on the same level of production scale, right? If we could have a Genesis like consistently organized 4 or 5 times a year, like as a part of a specific circuit or something, and have the same level of quality at each one is big. Because even between big tournaments right now, like, yes, we do have like a lot of really, really high quality big majors and stuff, but they aren't necessarily consistent with one another and whatnot, and timed around, like having some sort of that component to things. And then prize pools is like still a big one, right? Melee has been growing in terms of prize pools, but we're still not Fortnite, Dota, League of Legends.
It's actually crazy how little, like, it's crazy to me how little, like, people make in Melee. It is astounding to me.
That was VC3, right? The prize pool, just off the top of my head for Melee, and that was like Axe versus Zane Grand Finals. I'm pretty sure Axe got like something like, I don't want to say the wrong number, so let me just do a quick maths here. But like 1,500 Canadian dollars for winning that, 1,600 Canadian dollars, and like for some people in esports, that's like not even what they make from like streaming in a couple of days, right? Like it is chump change relative to anything else. Like as someone with a full-time job, like the fact that the first place player in the world potentially is going to make less than my paycheck for like doing what he does is just
it's crazy.
Like, so I think it is really cool right now that Melee does have people who are surviving off of Melee full time and able to live comfortably, right? Like off of Melee. That is the dream of Melee as an esport, right? Like League of Legends players who are at the top level, they don't even have to think twice about finances anymore, right? So they can really just put their all into the game, per se. For us to have a healthy Melee ecosystem as an esport going forward, we need to make that accessible to more and more people, right? Because even, like, I think maybe the top, like, 10 players in the world could probably get by full-time on Melee. But even beyond that, it drops off. And, like, there are some people beyond the top 10 who are, like, full-time Melee in some capacity, like, as a creator. But they do have to do so much more, right? They do have to stream like 7 days a week or whatnot, make content, try and win tournaments on top of that. So taking off some of the financial stress would be huge. I mean, like, if you get 8th at a tournament these days, I mean, 8th at Battle BC got like $40, $50 or something, right? And that's just like, that's like, it's no fault of our tournament. It's just that we don't have money to give more than what we have in the prize.
And like just to give context to people who don't really play Smash, like top 8ing a tournament is a huge deal for most people. It's something that a lot of people work towards, like their entire time playing Smash, they want to make a top 8. And you know, to get there, and like just the compensation that you see just isn't, like, the ratio just isn't the same for the amount of time that you put in for the compensation you get for getting to top 8.
Beyond just prize pool money, for Battle of BC, I've never actually put money towards like a pot bonus and whatnot. All my expenses around Battle of BC, like the big ones in investments I'm making community-wise, are flights and like hospitality. I make sure that the top players who do come to our event, I am able to give them housing. I am able to subsidize their trip, because it feels wrong to me that they need to perform, otherwise they're going to go broke. Right? Like, there should be some baseline where they can at least come to the event and not like have that pressure in their mind, because that changes you, right? Like, if you're there and you winning and you losing is literally the breaking point between you having financial security and not, that is toxic to me, right? Like I don't want that. I don't like, as much as some people might say, oh, it drives them, oh, they'll go harder. Like, no, like that's just inhumane, right? At the end of the day, like you're doing that for your entertainment if you have those thoughts, right? So if we were to have unlimited money in a Smash circuit, then like flying out people, paying people, that's like one luxury that people with sponsors afford, right? Is that their sponsor usually takes care of that stuff for them and allows them to grow and stuff. That's why esports sponsors are something that people in Smash wanted. And now we do have players who have tier 1 sponsors like TSM, C9, CLG, all these big brands are in Smash Bros. And giving players those opportunities. More of these endemic sponsors coming in and supporting players in our scene is huge. And then as tournaments, if tournaments had money to be able to support players financially as well. Gommel has been doing really cool stuff in that regard, in terms of like they run like circuits and stuff prior to the event, and then they get like regional like top players flown out. Like for Battle BC4, like plans were to give money to the top XPR players in every province in BC. Like if you're on the top 3 of your provincial PR, like we'll give you some money, because I want those players represented, but financially it's really hard for them to do that, right? So if I had unlimited money, that's definitely a really big thing. We're going to be running into a problem in the next couple of years that is being solved right now, but just of setups and actually logistics in that regard.
CRTs are hard to find, man. We are still using the bunch that you have in the club room. They're just like lying there.
Yeah, CRTs are great and all, but we are going to see some shifts at some point soon, especially now that people have gone to monitor melee for Slippi. So like we are going to need to figure that stuff out. But if we had endless amounts of money, then like honestly, like if we did have at some point, this is also still contingent on Nintendo though in some degree, right? But if Nintendo gave us a green light, then companies like Alienware, companies like Intel, big tech companies like Asus Reign of Gaming, all these companies that are making like gaming PCs and gaming laptops would suddenly have an actual interest in our community, because if our tournaments were one day run on monitors with high-end gaming equipment that was running Slippi like in person, that could be the future. And with unlimited amounts of money and resources, like having 128 of those at a tournament is totally feasible. Whereas right now, for me to get 128 CRTs is honestly like physically impossible in Vancouver right now. I have like 40, 50, but like that's about it.
Dude, I think your stash is the largest. Pretty sure that's the largest stash in Vancouver. Just like
I own like 21 CRTs, 22 CRTs between my garage and the UBC club room.
So if you guys don't know, we like, if you're like in UBC Esports, we have like this large club room area and there's like a bunch of tables, but there's one corner just like a stack of like 20 like CRTs of different sizes that nobody gets to touch. Everyone's just like, you can't touch those.
For 5 years I've gotten in trouble for that, man. Every year the AMS has yelled at me for that. Praying nothing ever happens to them. But it's like nobody's ever gonna even steal them. There's and every one of them has my name scribbled on it in a Sharpie.
We use them once a year for like Battle of BC or potentially play with Heart. Now hopefully that's going to be a yearly thing, and like the rest of the time it's just there, or we have a Melee weekly. But I guess now Melee weeklies we can do on our larger monitors, so like who even knows anymore, man. Okay, so I want to push time in for like one last question that I think would be a little more education for all the people who are Melee players or any aspiring esports person that is into the whole tournament organization scene. And I think even for me, like before I joined UBC Esports, a lot of this esports organization stuff was like covered in the veil of they know there until I really, until I got to see a bunch of my friends host these tournaments and host some tournaments for myself. So like, let's go into the background of what it takes to actually host a Smash tournament from like point zero, like when you were flying back from Genesis 3 and you thought of Battle of BC to your head until the point where it was conceived and it actually happened. Like, what were the steps that you had to go through?
Gotcha. Yeah. To host an in-person Melee tournament, the biggest things, like the parameters for logistics-wise, are setups is one of them. Location and venue is the other one. And then player attendance. Like, those are the three things. Like, how can I get enough setups? how can I get a good enough venue, and how can I get players to attend? Everything depends on these three parameters for your event to be successful. How can I get players to attend is the one where tournament organizers have the most creativity and leeway on, whether it be my tournament's going to be at a bar and we're going to have alcohol and it's going to be casual and fun. That's like a big one. Or my tournament's going to have round robin pools or a ladder or some like added value.
Okay.
I'll go in more on that in a sec, but logistics, the other ones, venue is a really, really hard one for most starting up tournament organizers, right? For me, when I first started running tournaments back in high school, I got lucky in some ways there too. I mean, not so much lucky as I also made the drive to do so, but my high school tournaments, I found a community center. I talked to the youth program coordinator there, told her what I was planning to do, and she said, go for it. Like, here you go. Like, you guys can have the venue. But if I were to rent that venue, it would be $25 an hour for 8 hours. That's like $200 or whatnot. Like, I couldn't afford to pay that. And even if I charged all 30, 40 people who came to the event a venue fee, I still wouldn't be able to break even on that, right? So, like, your venue cost is directly tied to how many players you can get to attend and how much you can get each of those players to pay you to attend that event, which is where the whole concept of value comes into play, right? Yep. And then setups. So setups is another big one that, like, as a starting up tournament organizer can be really challenging. Like at this point when I run a tournament, I already know I'm going to have some of my own setups, which is really nice because I've worked on that throughout the years and put a lot of money into that. But Smash Bros. Community is really nice in that it's always been community driven for setups. Melee, more so than Ultimate, to be totally clear with you, is that, like, for Melee, whenever people go to a tournament, or back in the day at least, it was like a given that you're going to bring your setup. Because your setup being there means you're going to play more games. And we'd also offer incentives. Like every tournament that I ran, if you brought a setup, we'd give you your venue fee off, or give you like $2 off, or give you something, right? Every tournament. That was the standard. It's not so much the standard these days, is what I'm noticing. And for Ultimate, you're this is one of the areas where CRTs actually are even more advantageous, because nobody's going to cry nobody's going to even think that I'm going to bring this 40, 50-pound CRT to this tournament and my 20-year-old GameCube in Melee, and somebody's going to steal it. Like, that's not a thought. Yeah. But my $300 BenQ monitor and my $500 Switch, I'm not going to leave that unattended for the whole day. That's right. Yeah. And we have had thefts of that kind of stuff before, but that's like a really big one. But from a logistical standpoint, because you can't run your tournament unless you have setups. And there have been times where tournaments haven't had enough setups and whatnot. But like now in our community, there are people who rent them out. There are organizations that you can like try and get them for. Not so much in Canada, but in the States, there's gaming generations, and they're kind of the backbone of the major tournaments. And that they literally have like 100 CRTs and 100 copies of Melee, and they ship them around the country. So like all these majors in the States, like they do depend on them. Some of them don't. Like some of them have like what we do, which is the grassroots. But even us, like for Melee, if we wanted to go much bigger, we'd have to figure something out as to how we can move forward.
That makes sense.
Going back to the like value stuff. So this is all stuff in regards to an in-person tournament back in the day. That landscape is shifting now. Now the barrier to entry to becoming a tournament organizer is so low. Like running a tournament on Smash GG is so easy. Back then we didn't even have Smash GG, right? Yeah. Like I had Excel spreadsheets to manage everything from registration to seeding to pools to brackets. Like, and I would throw that into challenge here and there, but like it was all a manual process. But now you're literally spoon-fed on this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like there is infrastructure that exists that has made it so much easier. So if you wanted to run an online Melee tournament tomorrow, you could do that without even stressing at all, right?
Yeah,
and it's beautiful to see.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Or
yeah. I mean, I think my thoughts around that is because of this, though, and like when tournaments do return, we are going to see a shift in attitude from Melee players about tournaments, especially from the ones that are just coming into the scene through Slippi or in the past year or from Ultimate. because those players won't actually. A lot of the stuff is going to be taken for granted potentially that you get now with Slippi and all that stuff. Because back in the day when you went to a tournament, you couldn't necessarily just go play someone. You couldn't just go play friendlies. Like, it was rare to have setups on the side for friendlies during the tournament. But even then, when there were friendlies available, it was always 3-man rotations. Like, your own setup only meant would only happen if you're doing a money match or something. And then people would leave you alone for a couple of games. But even then, people would be waiting to play after you, right? That's going to be a thing. And for weeklies and stuff, right? Think about what it takes for somebody who doesn't, like, at UBC it's a little different because if you're already at school and stuff, it's different. But think about what it takes for someone like me now, as somebody who works full-time, to make the commitment to want to go to UBC every Tuesday to play in a Melee bracket.
Yeah.
Relative to my computer's right, my gaming computer's right there. I am comfy in my home and I can play better and more matches than I would going to this tournament, right? So we're going to have to reevaluate some of these things. And that's all to do with the value side of things, right? Yeah. Like, what value is going to this tournament going to give to my attendees to make them want to go, as opposed to just sit at home and play Slippi?
I think that's a really interesting thought, because I agree. I think that like things are going to have to change. And honestly, a part of why I personally like fell in love with Smash. Well, yeah, I really like the game. I fell in love with Smash mainly because I started playing the game and there were so many supportive people around me who could teach me the game, right? And beyond that, UBC has a really good local scene. Like, every week there's a local that you can go to, and you can just, like, whether you go 0-2 in your pool or whatever, there's a bunch of people that are willing to play friendlies with you and help you get better. And I think one of the craziest things for me is that, okay, I don't know if this is like common in other regions or whatever, but at least in BC, in my experience at UBC, you have really, really good Ultimate players that come there every week to compete against each other, right? Like, I can just casually talk to Taylor or Lemon, like, about any old thing that I want. Like, I can just ask a person who's potentially like maybe top 100 in the world about a question that I want to ask. Big D sometimes shows up, a person who is literally top 50 in the world at playing the game. Like, I think that access is really sick. And, you know, if Nintendo fixes its online, maybe that goes away. We never know. I never thought about that point, that like Melee used to be very local and very land based because it was forced to be. Yeah, it had to be. Yeah. And I never thought about, like, if it moved online, what could happen to it. Anyway, yeah, those are some really great thoughts.
Like, you wouldn't ever see, I mean, just going back to like League of Legends or pro esport, like, as a comparison, right? If UBC Esports was hosting UBC Cup for League of Legends, you wouldn't ever expect Bjergsen to enter your League of Legends tournament, right? But you would expect Big D or Silent Wolf or something like top players to enter. Like, it's totally normal because that's just the way our competitive ecosystem is. So I'm expecting to see a growth in monthlies and regionals where all of these net play players will show up because there's more incentive for them to. But I think weeklies are potentially going to start dying out, or they're going to become more community and social driven, right? The reason I was going to weeklies isn't necessarily because I was trying to win money or like crazy compete. It was to hang out with my homies, right? I went to pretty much every UBC Ultimate weekly when I was here and when I could, because it was a time for me to hang out with my homies and just chill, right?
Dude, that Brockhampton night was one of the greatest nights of all time. That was an insane. I can't believe that happened. Okay, if people don't know, basically, okay, so I'm playing at a weekly, right? Well, I'm practicing friendlies on a setup. And one of our friends, Jared, also another TO, walks up to me and he shows me like this DM that Dom from Brockhampton might be dropping by our weekly, and like you somehow invited him, and that like worked out, and we got to sit there and play friendlies with one of my favorite artists like for such a long time. We got to smoke with him, we got to have a good time. Like that doesn't happen if we just play online, you know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy memory that I will never forget, and it is because I went to my Smash Ultimate weekly.
Yeah, man, huge shout outs to Dom. That was just a crazy night for sure. I think there is a magical social component that comes to these weeklies, and I think weeklies and stuff are going to...
Oh, oops.
Yo.
Sorry, dog. My Discord crashed for a second.
No worries, man. No worries.
Yeah, like.
Let me know when you're when to start. Or continue that thought.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Continue.
Okay. I think weeklies are really gonna have to lean in on the social side of things and the additional value. I don't want to like name any names, but the idea of a tournament where I'm going to have to on a weekly basis pay a lot of money to go to and not have that, I'm just not going to go to that anymore. Like I have zero interest in doing that anymore. I want the endemic thing, and that's why like I lived in the States for a couple of months, and when I was in the States, I ran 2 tournaments a week, but one of my weeklies was a bar tournament, and it was just a good time. People chilled. It was really casual. We still had a good bracket and everything, but most people were there to have a good time, right? Yeah. And back in March, when I was like in the process of moving back to Vancouver, like I have an agreement with the bar by my house to start running a weekly there, and that was going to start like if Corona hadn't happened, and it will hopefully start once Corona ends or dies down a little bit. But those kind of things, those kind of experiences are what we're going to need to create for people to get them out of their net play environment.
I'm really looking forward to the innovation that we're going to see in terms of social gathering when it comes to Smash tournaments for sure. Okay, I think that was the last question that I had for you. Thank you so much, man. This was a really fun podcast to do with you. You gave me a lot of insight, and I hope that the people that watch this are able to like gain a lot of insight about the Melee community too. Any last words that you want to say before we go off?
Nah, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll shout out Galint Gaming. We're running the Galint Melee Open next month, January 9th and 10th. So if you are now inspired to play some Melee, check that out. The new Melee documentary is coming out today, immediately after I'm done recording this.
We'll go watch this,
Metagame. So if you have any interest in Melee, the Melee documentaries are the best place to start.
It is,
because it will get you hyped up. It's better than any like Netflix original esports thing that you can watch.
I genuinely believe that. The Smash doc is why I actually got into Melee, and like why I was even interested in I watched that 4-hour documentary before I touched a controller to play Melee. It's an amazing documentary. Everybody should watch it.
Exactly, man. Like I'm watching Queen's Gambit right now, and my girlfriend are trying to buy a chess set. It's the same thing, but like exponentially more
exponentially
hype,
better. Yep.
Yeah, exponentially more hype. 5 days of Melee is next week, so if you do have the chance, check in and tune in. We're doing 5 days straight of non-stop Melee content, like literally around the clock, 24/7 from Monday through Friday. So do check that out if you have the chance to. But yeah, thank you so much, and
for sure,
play some good Melee.
All right, see you guys. Yo, thank you, man. That was really fun.